Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for tuning in for Direct Connection. Coming up, answers to your questions about the solar eclipse. But we begin tonight with new developments in reaction to racist violence in Virginia. Changes are coming to Confederate-era monuments in Maryland. Joining us tonight is Maryland's Attorney General Brian Frosh. Mr. Frosh, thank you for being with us. Let's start first with your broad reaction to what you saw this weekend.
This weekend was pretty horrible, Jeff. The Nazi wannabes, the white supremacists in Virginia, resulting in violence, their demonstration resulting in violence, and ultimately in the murder of a young woman. It was awful.
Lots to talk about there. There was the attack that killed that woman. The issue of the monuments themselves, there's the Trump angle, but let me begin with this group, the white nationalists, neo-Nazis, whatever they're called. What struck me was the size, hundreds of people carrying torches, standing around the Lee Monument, and not bothering to disguise themselves or wear hoods. Did that strike you as unusual?
It was unusual. It was frightening. As you say, they were carrying torches and shields and helmets, and they were heavily armed, and pretty openly so.
What do you make of the president's two statements on this?
Well, I thought his first statement was completely inadequate. And I was not impressed by his second statement. I thought it was remarkable that he responded immediately when the president of Merck resigned from his task force, tweeted out condemnation of the company and the individual right away. And it took him 48 hours to actually acknowledge that it was white supremacists and racists and neo-Nazis that were causing the problems in Virginia.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question for Maryland's Attorney General, you can give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen. You can also tweet your questions. Our Twitter address is @MPT News. So the trouble in Charlottesville was centered initially, at least, around the Robert E. Lee statue in Charlottesville. There are Civil War era Confederate monuments in Baltimore City. And then on the State House lawn, there is the statue of Justice Taney, who was a Marylander, who was a Supreme Court justice, authored the Dred Scott decision. There's been discussion over the years about removing that. Today, the Speaker of the House said he would be in favor of doing that. Do you agree?
I do agree. In fact, 25 years or so ago, I co-sponsored with Delegate Tony Fulton, now deceased, a bill to do just that, to take Taney's statue off the State House grounds, replace it with a statue of Thurgood Marshall. A couple of years later, the statue of Thurgood Marshall went up, but the statue of Taney remains. And this man was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, but he was not an American hero. He was the author of the Dred Scott decision, one of the 2 or 3 worst decisions in American history. And I don't think he ought to be honored by us by having a place on the State House grounds.
Opponents of that, if I recall, believed that it should stand because it was part of history and it should be a teachable moment. Is there anything to that case?
Well, you know, we have lots of ugly spots in our history, and we don't erect monuments to them on the State House grounds. You know, it strikes me in all of this conversation about these Confederate statues and the statues and the statue of Taney, We have no statues of slaves, of folks who were hurt by the Civil War, the folks over whom the Civil War was fought. And I just don't see that we should honor the memory of Justice Taney with a statue right in front of the Maryland State House. In terms of erasing the legacy of the Confederacy, how far to go? So Mayor Pugh in Baltimore City now is talking about moving forward with removing, it's really a handful in the city, and they need to find some money to do it, but not far from the state of Maryland. You have Jefferson Davis Highway in Alexandria. You have this ferry that runs across the Potomac, named for Confederate General Early. Does that need to change? Well, Jeff, I think any way in which we honor the Confederates, the Confederacy, is something that ought to be questioned. Certainly, the memorials, the statues in Baltimore City, which honor the Confederate soldiers, should be taken down, should be replaced by something more appropriate, somebody or something that we really do want to honor. But I think we fictionalize the bravery of the Confederate soldiers. They were fighting for slavery. They were fighting for values that we now abhor. And I don't see any reason that as a society we should continue to honor those memories and those values. Let's take a call from Harford County. This is Georgie. Thank you for calling. Go ahead. George or Georgie, you're on. We'll give this a couple of seconds for the delay. Can you hear me, Georgie?
Yes, I can.
Go ahead with your question.
My question is, why don't we have a right as our heritage for the Confederacy to be honored?
Explain that a little bit more, Georgie. But before we get an answer from the Attorney General, what is the heritage? How do you want it honored?
My grandfather fought for the Confederacy. I was raised to believe that it was separation of state, had nothing to do with slavery. When I see the Confederate flag or I see the statues, I don't see slavery. I see my heritage. Thank you for the call, Mr. Frosch.
Well, I think the sad fact is that the Civil War was fought over slavery. And we still see they're not just ripples, we still see the effects of that in our society today. And that's why I would say we should not honor the Confederate generals and Confederate so-called heroes.
Call from Anne Arundel County. This is Eric. Eric, thank you for the call. Go ahead.
Hi, Attorney General Frost. My question is there a timeline that you're working with Mayor Pugh in order to remove these statues? Would it be within 90 days or 6 months? Have you guys decided that yet?
Thank you.
So, Eric, I am not working with Mayor Pugh. The decision as to what to do with those Confederate memorials is up to the city of Baltimore. It's not up to me. I'm just expressing my personal views about those statues.
Well, let me ask you an Attorney General-ish legal question. So what we had in Charlottesville initially was this group, I think, requested a permit to hold their rally in front of the Lee statue. If there was a group that wanted to do something in Annapolis in front of the Taney statue or in North Baltimore in front of those statues, does the answer have to be yes under the First Amendment?
Sadly, you asked me a lawyer question, I'll give you a lawyer answer. The answer is it depends. It depends on what they want to do, when they want to do it, how they want to do it. I mean, I can tell you this. In Maryland, you could not have people carrying assault weapons wandering around and demonstrating and protesting. That would not be legal here. That might make us safer, but it would just depend on the circumstances, Jeff.
Let's take a call from Washington County. This is Barbara. Barbara, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Thank you. My daughter is a legal, naturalized U.S. citizen from El Salvador, and she was recently confronted by someone who told her to go home, presumably back to El Salvador, even though she's been here for many years. What can be done about that?
Barbara, thank you.
Well, you know, that kind of statement is a terrible one. It's inappropriate and unfair, but it's not criminal. We would hope that in our society, those kinds of attitudes, those kinds of bullying and attacks would not be socially acceptable. Sadly, I think because our president has set such a poor example, we're having much more of that kind of conduct. It's not illegal unless it's threatening, but it is really unfortunate.
What's your gut tell you is the best approach in that smaller unfortunate situation, this large unfortunate situation over the weekend? Is it better to ignore or confront?
Boy, the results this weekend were so bad that I can't say that confrontation is useful, but it's very hard to stand idly by and watch people who are preaching hate and threatening violence and allow them to occupy the stage. Obviously, I don't think that any kind of physical confrontation between any groups is a good thing, but I really don't have a formula for how that kind of protest should be managed.
Phone call from West Virginia. This is Charles. Charles, thank you for the call. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm not for honoring the Confederacy one little bit. I was born and raised in Maryland, but as far as I'm concerned, leave the Confederate statues alone. I mean, it's a public reminder of mistakes we've made in the past. All it does is draw attention to the subject and rally. And if you're going to take them down, it's like a rallying cry. These supremacist groups, I mean, leave them be. Why can't we do that?
Interesting question. Thank you very much. Mr. Frosch?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a fair point. It does obviously generate controversy when you talk about removing them. But if it were up to me, putting those statues in a place of honor, I think is inappropriate, and I would get rid of them.
You know, when I was listening to all the things that we have in the state of Maryland, various statues, and then the highways in Virginia, I forgot to mention our state song, which I know comes up periodically. You were in the legislature for a long time. The verses that call Lincoln a tyrant. I mean, it's a Confederacy sympathetic. Not saying that right, but the song has Confederate sympathies burned into it. Do we need to do something about that?
Well, some of the verses are fine. Some of the verses are inappropriate. And, you know, it may be that the legislature should edit the song. You can take out a bunch of the verses. I think it'd probably be all right.
Well, practice it on that piano behind you. Mr. Frosch, thank you very much for...
If I could play the piano.
We'll work on that, too. Attorney General Brian Frosch, thank you so much for your time.
Good to be with you, Jeff.
And coming up tonight, answers to your questions about next week's big solar eclipse. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Larry Unger, here with Judy Woodruff of the PBS NewsHour.
From politics and the economy to health, science, and education, the NewsHour delivers a thorough analysis of current events to help you put the day's news in context.
Judy and the NewsHour team have set the standard for deep and unbiased reporting. We are so pleased to present it as part of our Public Square programming.
Join me on the PBS NewsHour weeknights at 6.
Got an unused vehicle going nowhere? Donate it to the one place that can take you any place. Visit mpt.org/vehicles and support the programs you love on MPT.
The MPT app puts our programs right at your fingertips, so you can choose when to watch, what to watch, wherever you want to watch it. Download it now.
What happens in Japan and Asia matters to me. And with NHK World's newsroom in Tokyo, I get the news live from Japan right at the start of my day.
New ideas come out of Asia all the time. NHK Newsline reports on business, technology, and world events from Tokyo to Bangkok.
Once in the morning gives me a heads up on the competition.
Every hour on the hour, the news I want from Asia.
Watch NHK World now on Comcast Channel 268 and Verizon Channel 480.
Are you? Joining us now in the studio is Alex Young, Associate Director for Science at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. Dr. Young, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
You're going to be co-hosting the NASA TV live coverage of the eclipse, which is an extravaganza. It's like New Year's Eve, you said.
That's right.
In reverse.
In reverse. We're going to start on the West Coast, off the West Coast, and work our way across the country, showing everything from a first view from an airplane with heads of science in NASA, and then reaching across the different places along the path. And
all right, so here's the map. So
okay.
let's explain to people. So it is going to start in the upper left, in the Pacific Northwest.
That's right.
And the area in the center is the path of totality, where you get the best show.
Right.
The sun's going to be completely blocked out next Monday afternoon by the time it gets to us, right?
Right.
So where are we on here? You can see it's going to be, the path of totality looks like South Carolina.
So we're at about 80% coverage.
That's pretty
in
good.
Maryland. It is pretty good, and we're gonna see that. We're gonna notice a change in the hue of the sky. We're gonna notice a change in temperature. It won't be super strong, but we will see that. You know, it's sort of like a giant cloud, but a 70-mile wide cloud that's blocking out part of the sun.
I hope it's not a day like today.
I hope not.
Cloudy
too.
all day.
I hope that too. I have my worries being in Charleston, South Carolina. In the afternoon, thunderstorms are often a common occurrence.
So from a civilian standpoint, this is very cool. But from a scientist standpoint, it's way cooler,
This
right?
is an amazing opportunity. I mean, I will say, I want to emphasize that this is a human experience. I mean, experiencing this totality is one of nature's most amazing phenomena, and it's an opportunity to really connect with the universe. And I don't say that lightly. We study the sun, but the sun is one of many stars, and it's our connection to the rest of the universe. So that's the important part there. But science-wise, it is an opportunity to study the sun, a region of the sun called the corona, which is only visible in visible light during a total solar eclipse from the ground. Even with a spacecraft, we can't see that. And this is a very important area of the sun. And this eclipse, because it's going across such a huge part of the United States, a huge piece of land, we can see that shadow and actually see the impact on the atmosphere. So we're not only studying the sun, but we're studying the Earth and the atmosphere itself.
This isn't like forecasting the weather. This is actually going to happen, and it's going to happen on time, down to the second.
And that's what makes it a great science. Well, you know what? The moon is how we know. So we have a spacecraft called the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, and that has provided an amazing detail of the edge of the moon, and we use that to actually map the shadow and know where it is, what shape it is, how fast it's going, to a really high precision.
You brought some props.
Safety.
Some of these glasses that are, I mean, serious stuff, prevent somebody from losing or damaging their vision.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about it, but I want to get a phone call first. Frederick County, this is Tom. Tom, go ahead with your question.
Hi, yeah. My question is, everybody also talks about the 1979 total solar eclipse, and I was wondering two things. What was the different path of the 79 solar eclipse, and any other differences between that one and the one that's coming up?
Thanks. You were about 5 years old then, right?
Yeah, a little bit older than that. I was born in '68, so I was a little bit older. But that's actually much different. That it actually entered the the west coast of the United States about the same place in Oregon, but it only covered 4 states up in the northwest corner of the United States. I don't remember what the time of totality was, how long totality was, but it covered a very small piece of the country, whereas this one is going over 3,000 miles coast to coast. So in that sense, there's no comparison.
Okay, I'll let you put these on.
Okay.
I did it last week. I did the funny
All
look.
right.
What's NASA telling people about the danger to their vision from the eclipse?
Well, the most important thing to remember is that except for that brief period of totality along that path, you cannot look at the sun directly even when it's partially eclipsed. So the uneclipsed sun, we know we're never supposed to look at that. The partially eclipsed sun is just as dangerous. So
people on a sunny day, you just couldn't go out and look at the sun. It would hurt.
Right, and it's really no different. I mean, the sun is so bright. Just to give you an idea, even when 99% of it's covered, it's still 10,000 times brighter than a full moon, even that little tiny sliver.
It's hard to communicate how dark these lenses are.
These things are super dark. I cannot see anything in this room, and that's what you really want. Only the very brightest lights. And again, the only lights that you'll see are ones that are bright to you right now, even besides the sun.
Now, I'm in this job sort of a professional cynic. I'm not trusting those or any glasses with my eyesight. Maybe if I had them on, I'd cover an eye just to be safer and only take the quickest glance. Well, I mean, because there have already been some reports of counterfeit glasses.
Right. Well, no, that's a very important point. I mean, one of the things is we can only do so much in terms of protecting. So what we have done in conjunction with the American Astronomical Society, AAS, is go through and find vendors and manufacturers that we know are verified. We know that they follow the standards, and we also know that they use testing companies, laboratories that also follow the standards. So the most important thing to remember is to look for this ISO standard that you see here. Look for the ISO number, and look for the manufacturer. There's a list on the NASA website, eclipse2017.nasa.gov. You can go there under safety and find a link to a list of reputable dealers, and that's the best you can do.
Glasses for a second. I'm trying to communicate just how dark these things are. So I've got the little flashlight thing on my camera shining, and it's fairly bright. But through this, you just see the faintest dot.
Yeah, so
these things are.
I'll do the same thing.
The legit
myself.
ones are incredibly dark.
Right. So you put this. So yeah, you see just a little tiny dot there. Probably can't see this on camera, but this light is bright. It's difficult to look at, and this is what this blocks.
Let's squeeze in one more phone call. Baltimore County. This is David. David, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. This is very, very interesting. So if I were in a jet in the Pacific Northwest and I'm in the totality zone and I wanted to stay in it as it moves toward South Carolina, how fast would my jet have to go?
Wow,
that's a great question. And your jet needs to go somewhere between 1,200 and 1,500 miles per hour.
So we're not going that fast.
That's why the only commercial jet that ever kept up with an eclipse was the Concorde.
There's a train that Amtrak schedule that has something to do with the eclipse, but it's probably not catching up.
Probably not going to catch up with it. You need some pretty serious planes, at least Mach 1.5.
Call from Caroline County. This is Susan. Susan, thank you for the call. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm just concerned that since school is not in session, there'll be so many children that may not be fully supervised. Is there a chance that we're going to have an epidemic of blindness among children whose parents may not have the wherewithal to acquire these eclipse glasses?
It's a great question, and I'll point out that it wouldn't be in Maryland, but elsewhere. I read that a school district was closing down for the day just because they didn't want to have to deal with the kids, but meaning all these kids were going to be on the loose.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a very important question, and that's something that people are concerned about, and I think they should be concerned about it. Now, the one thing to remember is Even with the partially eclipsed sun, it is going to be so bright, it's not going to be comfortable to look at. Now, it is true that the damage that's done, you don't feel it, but that doesn't mean that when you look up at a really bright light, like the sun, we all know you don't want to do it. Your body tells you, your blinking mechanism tells you, you want to look away. And that will be no different. So that is one important thing. You shouldn't just rely on that, but that's an important thing to remember.
Yeah, and being outside to experience it without looking up will hopefully be very cool. And if you want a close-up look, turn on the TV, NASA TV. I'm sure all the cable news channels are going to have great views of it.
Right, because the whole environment around you is going to change. As the light comes down and it's partially eclipsed, the sun is actually a little crescent. And so what happens is the light shines through leaves on trees. You're going to see crescent shadows around you. So all you have to do during a partial eclipse is look around to see what's happening.
If I oversleep next Monday, when's the next one?
The next one, well, in the United States, is 2024, so only 7 years away.
Very good.
And that's actually going to come closer to us than this one does.
Alex Young with NASA Goddard, thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure.
And thank you for joining us for Direct Connection. We're back Thursday with Your Money in Business. Have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.